Right, let's all. Hi guys, a little bit different here for episode 5 of Unlocking the Fretboard Season 2, where we're talking about chords. So basically, we've done a lot of just going through the theory behind chords and building chords from scale, and also looked at lots of different extensions of chords. Now we're going to look at how people actually use chords, put them together and create songs. So it's going to hopefully be a relatively useful look at creating and writing songs. We're going to concentrate today on a band called the Beatles, who were quite a big band in the 60s, you might have heard of them. Anyway, yeah, hugely important for me personally because my dad had lots of Beatles LPs, so I used to steal them when I was younger, and listen to them a lot. I remember particularly Hey Jude, absolutely loving that. He had that, he still got it on single, great single. Anyway, so there's loads and loads and loads of different examples of tricks and ideas that the Beatles use, obviously throughout their career, and as solo artists there's absolutely loads. I'm only going to concentrate on just a few. Most of these also are going to be in their earlier days. Some of them you'll still see later on in chord sequences, but a lot of these ideas are from their earlier days, and hopefully that will mean that they're relatively simple without being too complicated. To understand a lot of what I'm going to talk about, you need to really understand the chords that are within a key, which I've gone through in a previous episode, and also understand the concept of a relative minor. And as long as you understand those two things, then this should all make sense. So basically, if you don't know what those are, I'll make sure I put a link in the description to a video where I talk about those, and hopefully that'll help you. You'll probably work it out as I go as well, to be perfectly honest, because you'll see the chords I'm playing as I say them to you, and then you'll think, okay, that's that. So let's crack on. The first thing we're going to look at is the very basic 3-chord trick. Okay guys, so the 3-chord trick is probably the starting point for a lot of us playing guitar. I know for me, learning blues songs was a real starting point, and they predominantly use this 3-chord trick. So the idea is you take the 1 chord in a key, which is the major chord. So for example, in the key of E, it's an E major. You then take the 4th chord in that key, which in the key of E would be an A major. And you then take the 5th chord in the key, which is a B major in the key of E, or a B7 if you prefer. Both are fine. And then you create a song like that, okay? Now the classic is a blues, which will go 1 to 4 to 1, and then you'll go 5, 4, 1. So you get that 1 chord, 4 chord, 1 chord, 5, 1, 4, sorry, 1. Back to the 5 there at the end just to show off. And that's the classic 1-4-5 combo, and so any combination of those 3 chords, you'll see it throughout Beatles songs, but throughout other songs as well. A great example is Bad Moon Rising by CCR, which is D, A and G. All that stuff. And that is in the key of D, and that's the 3-chord trick. You've got the 1 chord, you've got the 4 chord, and you've got the 5, you've got the 5 chord and the 4 chord. So that's the 3-chord trick, okay? So that's our starting point of, if you're looking to just get into writing some simple songs, those 3 chords are the most important ones to start with, because that just gives you so many great sounds straight off. So the easiest way on a guitar to work it out is if you go along the E string and you find your root, so for example G major, you go down a string, you find the 4 chord in the key of G, that's a C, and then you go along 2 frets to find the 5 chord, a D. And then you can use that to create your 3-chord trick. So that's the very basic introduction 3-chord trick, okay? So the 1 chord, the 4 chord and the 5 chord. Next we're going to look at the relative minor vamp, okay? Okay, cup of tea, put that down. So, relative minor vamp, very, very simple concept again. All we do is we take the relative minor, which in a key is the 6th chord in the key. Obviously it's a minor chord. It's called the relative minor, just very, very quickly, because the natural minor of that chord has exactly the same notes as its relative major. So for example, in the key of E, E major and the scale of E major has the same chords in it as C sharp minor. They're just literally exactly the same notes, okay? So that's the relative, C sharp minor is the relative minor of E, okay? So one of the easiest tricks you can do is you can just add in that relative minor. So what they did is they would actually just go from the 1 chord to the 6 minor to the 1 chord to the 6 minor. So you might go, for example, E, C sharp minor, E, C sharp minor. And that's it. I mean, that is that simple. You can also do it the other way around. So you can go 6 minor to 1. Okay, so I've got an example. All I've got to do, which is from With the Beatles, does that exactly. It's C sharp minor to E, and it just uses that 6 minor to 1, 6 minor to 1. Another more modern example, Jeff Buckley's version of Hallelujah. Hallelujah, that's easy for me to say. Hallelujah goes from G to E minor. Anyway, so, and that's basically just going from the 1 to the 6 minor. So you've got your 3 chord trick. We're now going to just add in that very simple vamp. So you can go 1 to 6 minor, there you go, and that's it. That's as simple as that. So very, very useful step, that little vamp of just going 1 to 6 minor. The next thing we're going to look at is a couple of different doo-wop cycles, which is fun to say. So doo-wop cycles, very similar to what we just did. What we're going to do is we're going to take that 1-4-5 move and we're just going to insert that 6 minor. So rather than cycling between 1 and the relative minor a couple of times, we're just going to do it once. So for example, in the key of E, it would be E, 1 chord, relative minor, C sharp minor, to the 4 chord, to the 5, possibly a 7, and then back to the 1 chord. Beautiful sequence. They would have heard this, Please Mr. Postman, which I think they covered, in the key of A, and that is exactly that. 1 chord, A, 6 minor, relative minor, F sharp minor, to the 4 chord D, to that 5 chord E7. Okay, so that's one they definitely would have heard, and they would have used it. They would have played it, sorry, and then they used it to create their own songs. One of my favourites from the White Album, "Happiness Is a Warm Gun." The chorus, the verse isn't. The verse is very different, but the chorus is exactly that. So, but it's in C, so it goes C chord to that A minor. Happiness is bang, bang, shoop, shoop. I just want to sing it. Happiness, but I can't sing very well. Anyway, you get the idea. I've got a couple of other examples actually. I've just seen a face from Help, which is an A as well, same sequence as Please Mr. Postman, and a really late one, Real Love, which is one of the ones they did in the anthology, which is songs that John Lennon had left and had never finished, and then the Beatles got back together and finished them, and that uses that sequence in E as we went through it, that E to C sharp minor to A to B. So that's our first doo-wop cycle. Really, really cool. It goes 1 to the relative minor to the 4 chord to the 5 chord. Okay, so our second doo-wop cycle, is just slightly more complicated. We're going to start the same. We're going to go from the 1 chord to the relative minor. But what we can do is, instead of going to the 4 chord, we can go to the 4 chord's relative minor. So for example, in the key of A, the 4 chord is, in the key of E, sorry, the 4 chord is A. Oh my goodness. And then the relative minor of that is F sharp minor, as we just talked about. So what we can do is we can substitute that A for an F sharp minor, and again, this is a very common sequence. Perhaps very common is a bit overstating it. It's not as common as that first doo-wop sequence, but they would have heard it. I think it's they did like an evening with Del Shannon, and one of his songs, which for some reason I didn't write down, it has exactly this sequence. And so you end up having the 1 chord to the relative minor, which is the 6 minor, and then instead of the 4 chord, we go to its relative minor, which actually happens to be the 2 chord, F sharp minor, and then you go to that 5 chord. So we end up with 1, 6 minor, 2 minor, 5 with the dominant. Really, really cool sequence. But that's how you come about it. So rather than using the 4 chord, we take its relative minor, and that happens to be the 2 chord in the original key, which is just fantastic. So A's relative minor is the 2 chord in the key of E. Oh, music is so beautiful and weird. Right, so examples. Okay, so the classic one is this boy. What a tune. I think was it double A side with I Want to Hold Your Hand, or was it just the B side? I don't know. Cleverer people than me would know that. That's in the key of D, isn't it? So that goes D, and then to B minor, which is the relative minor of D. Then that E minor. La, da, 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 da. So, it's such a beautiful sequence, I can't sing, but you get the idea. Also, right at the beginning of Penny Lane is the same thing, and that's in B, so that's a bit more complicated chord sequence wise, but just a real short bit right at the beginning of it, isn't that? I've also got Tell Me Why, yeah, is in D, that's another one of their hits, and I Will, which is in F from the Beatles. All of that sequence, which is the second doo-wop cycle we're using, which is 1, 6 minor, which is the relative minor, 2 minor, which is the relative minor of the 4 chord, and then that beautiful 5 chord. So 2 doo-wop sequences. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to slightly change them. Next concept, very, very simple. Instead of being strict and going 1, 6 minor, 4, 5, or 1, 6 minor, 2 minor, 5, we just change the order. It's as simple as that. You use the same chords, but you just change the order. So one of my favourites, Let It Be, which is also the chord sequence to No Woman No Cry by Bob Marley, in the key of C, 1 chord, yeah, 2, 5 chord, to the relative minor, which is the 6 minor, and then to that 4 chord. There you go. So that's a classic sequence, but that's how they did it. They go 1, 5, 6 minor, 4. So they take that first doo-wop cycle and they just change the order. The first chord's still the same, but everything after that is just in a different order. And it's that simple. So what if you're writing songs, you're just getting into writing songs, and you like this kind of style of music, you like the Beatles, it's such a simple thing to be able to do, and you can create really, really cool chord sequences. I'll just go through a few quite quickly. Fool on the Hill from the Magical Mystery Tour, that's in the key of D, and that goes 2 minor, then to the 5 chord, then to the 1 chord, to that 6 minor. Yeah, so that's taking that second doo-wop cycle and changing the order. I Want to Hold Your Hand, oh what a song, and that takes that first cycle and changes the order again. So that's in the key of G, isn't it? So we start on the 4 chord, C, and then we go to the 5 chord, 1 to the relative minor. Oh yeah. Yeah, so good anyway. Anyway, sorry. Hello, Goodbye, another great song. That takes that same sequence again. We start on the 4 chord. That's in the key of C, sorry. So the 4 chord in C is an F. Then we go to that 1 chord, and then to the 5 with a dominant, to the relative. You say yes. Anyway, really, really simple idea. You take those doo-wop cycle sequences that you've just worked out and you just change the order, and they do that loads and loads and loads. Yeah, so that's a very, very simple, quick idea. And the next one, which is actually going to be the final one we're going to look at, slightly cold tea. It's almost okay though. Anyway, this is a really cool idea, and it creates some of my favourite chord sequences. I was using a couple of articles to kind of give me inspiration for this and to give me some notes, and someone coined this term, the magical mediant, and it just sounds really flashy and snazzy. But the mediant is just a snazzy name for the 3rd chord in the scale. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take that second chord sequence, the second doo-wop cycle, which we looked at, which was the 1 chord to the 6 chord to that 2 chord, back to the 5 chord, and then home again. And we're going to take out the relative minor, the 6 minor, and replace it with the 3rd chord, the mediant. And so we end up with the sequence where it goes 1 chord, 3 chord, which is also a minor in the key of E, sorry, that's a G sharp minor, 2 chord, and that 5 chord. And I absolutely love that sequence. What song is it that does that? It's a song on Help. You're Gonna Lose That Girl. The verse of that is literally that. E, G sharp minor, F sharp minor, B7. Oh my goodness. Sorry about that. So yeah, we've just gone through You're Gonna Lose That Girl in E. Oh, I love that sequence so much. The chorus to Girl, which is a really cool song. It's actually got a capo up here, so I won't play it for you, but it's exactly the same as they do in the track. But that's in the key of E flat, and that uses the same sequence. So it would go E flat, G minor, F minor, B flat 7. Really lovely sequence. So that's probably my favourite one, to be honest. What you can also do is, as we talked about in the last one, we can change the order, and they did that. And one of my favourite songs is Julia. He wrote that about his mum, and my mum's called Julia, so it's quite nice. Anyway, so that uses the idea of adding in a third to create a really interesting chord sequence. But in Julia, they don't take out the 6 chord, they take out the 2 chord. So it ends up being, it's in D, the 1 chord to the relative minor, to the 3rd chord in the scale, which is going to be F sharp minor, I don't know why I said it like that, and then to the 5 chord, the A7, which is a beautiful sequence. Absolutely love that. They use exactly that same sequence in She Loves You as well. Yeah, it's just in G, if you wanted to know. So that goes 1 chord, and then the 3 chord is a B minor. I don't know why my strumming's all wrong on that one, isn't it? But anyway, you get the idea. Really cool. Yeah, and I Feel Fine, another classic. The bridge to that is in G as well. Same chords. No, it's a slightly different sequence, isn't it? That one. That goes the 1 to the 3 minor to the 4 to the 5. So that would be G, B minor, C, D. So you can switch the order a little bit with the 3 chord as well. And so those are just a few examples of some Beatles tricks. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that, hopefully that made sense, and hopefully it's not too long a video. I find this stuff fascinating, as you can probably tell through the video. Some people don't like it at all, but if you do find it fascinating, hopefully you've found that little look at some Beatles tricks interesting. If you'd like me to do more Beatles stuff, let me know. Because obviously you can tell that I really like the Beatles, so yeah, just let me know, especially if you like more of this kind of stuff, let me know. In a couple of weeks' time is the plan. I'm going to do another one of these, but I'm going to do it about Oasis, because obviously if you don't know my channel, a lot of the videos I've done are on Oasis, just because of my age, and that's why I grew up playing. You know, when I started playing, it was Oasis were the biggest band in the UK at the time. So I'm going to do something similar to that on this on Oasis, some of even of the same tricks as well. But yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed this look at the Beatles, particularly their early chord sequences. Yeah, hopefully it made sense, and I'll see you guys again soon for some more theory stuff. I'll see you guys soon. Bye bye.